The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. So did WWE Survivor Series lay an egg? Listen, not necessarily, but I think if you wanted to go ahead and put it between, a sandwich, the opening match was good. The main event match was good. And then we're going to have to go and dissect what they actually did in the middle of this show. But my expectations overall were going to be low anyway. And I'm sure other podcast brethren out there would have said the same thing. But if you've been listening to this Wrestling is Real podcast for the last few weeks, since the return to touring in July, you need to have known, and also just by the indications of what's happening right now with WWE in terms of all the releases they've been putting out, which later on in the program, I'm going to talk about the 8 releases that I did not get to talk about because it happened on Thursday afternoon after I recorded this program. And I also want to go and bring up Impact Wrestling's Turning Point. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but let's get the Survivor Series right now. So there's a few things that did come out that were newsworthy, but we know that overall there were going to be no title changes because no titles were on the line. It was just respect, bravado, and bragging rights. And that doesn't matter to me at all. So most of the night, it did feel like it was kind of a bit of a Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown, feeling like, well, the Survivor Series matches would feel like very much if I was watching a gauntlet match, or, if they just had a big 10-man or 10-person tag match in, a couple times. They did a 5-on-5. They could do the same thing on Raw or SmackDown, and that would have been the same to me. And what they really tried to bring out of that, because they didn't try to create any. And the thing is, we know that the booking was not applied at all leading up to the pay-per-view. What they wanted to do with the pay-per-view was build a few storylines here and there, or at least just build a little bit of interest and just kind of gauge what people thought about if you saw which stars from Raw or SmackDown that did face each other, and a couple of things like that happened tonight. So when you look at Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair and revisiting that feud from earlier this year, up until Becky Lynch came in and beat Bianca Belair in 26 seconds. Then you have Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley and revisiting that feud. And what I got out of that tells me that they should have never got rid of those feuds. This is the antithesis of what WWE does. They finish feuds too early. They don't want to take time to go and really build any particular stories or build any real heat behind the stories or behind the stars, or necessarily build the stars with momentum leading into the match, where each individual is getting a big winning streak and working their way up as champion to get up to this. But we don't get that part. And for some of the stars that get here, they're not going to get that anyway. And there's a reason why they were not, how things were booked the way they were booked anyway. This is just the whole fashion of where you're not getting wrestling booking in the professional wrestling sense that you would think would be sensical. You're not getting that anymore. It's more on a popularity contest based on what Vince, Bruce, and the team there thinks and what they're kind of gauging. I would imagine they're doing what Bischoff probably had gotten from Turner Sports back in the day, where they used to get focus studies, focus groups. They would get peer studies. They would get an idea of an audience that would go ahead and check out the show, but not your layman wrestling fan. They want to bring people in from a mainstream audience because they can analyze through social media. They can analyze through focus and peer groups. They can analyze what the audience outside of the bubble of professional wrestling is. Who are the ones that are interested in wrestling outside of never watching WWE, except for the fact they might have been familiar with it, they might have heard about it, they might have seen some superstars on either social media or heard somebody talk about it on TikTok or Instagram, whatever, might have seen their feed pop up, or they could have had something where, there's some other overlying reason that would have drawn somebody to follow said superstar. You got to think about that and what that does, because that's the audience that the WWE wants to get. For however you feel this is, for us, we're not understanding it, and there's really not much to understand anyway, because I don't think they get what they're doing right now. And what they're trying to do to draw the audience, because that's what's happening now. And I'm going to bring this up probably as early as this Wednesday on the Wrestling Observer podcast, because we're not getting the performance that are being used to hone and train talent. We're getting central casting now. Central casting in a fail of that certain stars need to look and be the part and just happen to be able to wrestle or quickly adapt to wrestling. That's it. Otherwise, if you're going to see some really good matches and a lot of technical wrestling, that's not here. You're not getting that in WWE anymore. And the sooner you get to understand that, the better it's going to be for you on how you experience this product. Because that's what you have to go ahead and come to grips with right now, is this product is not like it was before. What we might have seen during the Thunderdome era, the technical side of wrestling, any of the stars that we saw, the NXT side, and all the technical wrestling and that indie-rific type feel, that's done. And any feeling of that type of star that you would see in any of the wrestling promotion now, Impact, AEW, MLW, New Japan, AAA, you're not going to see that anywhere in WWE anymore. If there's a little bit of a resemblance, or a leftover feel of it, because you might have a couple of stars that can still do that. But we do know there's a couple of stars that are going to probably not be a part of this at all. And even the way they book things, I think some of it's just pomp and circumstance, some of it's just to shock and awe, or just do something weird. But what they're doing is not any kind of wrestling that your run-of-the-mill wrestling fan is going to be so engaged with. Because it's not for them anymore. It's not for me. But I'm still going to watch it because I kind of feel like I want to understand what they're trying to do. Because I got to trust the people behind the scenes, not Bruce Pritchard. He's just it's a non-factor. But I'm going to just say it like this. Even with Survivor Series being a subpar show with a 2-match show, it is. No, I don't look at this show as a Big Four pay-per-view. It doesn't feel like that to me. And, the one thing you got to explain, too, is that maybe if The Rock could have made it for this 25th anniversary, maybe it would have been a different story, but it's not. And if Rock's even going to be around to wrestle, it won't be the WrestleMania 39. So we won't even see him at this WrestleMania this year. So the seeds have been planted more or less that Roman Reigns will have Brock Lesnar down the line, because all they had to do was just drop a little hint, Caleb Braxton talking to Paul Heyman backstage, that the indefinite suspension might be lifted. That's it. That's all they had to say. And then we know, okay, Brock's going to be back in the picture after this whole little deal with Big E, and that's it. Because we know that we're not going to get anything coming out of the Big E Roman Reigns match, except what we were going to expect. Hopefully that Big E would get something out of this, because, it would benefit Big E to have a really strong performance in that match. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. The overall sense, it gets back to that. And I will bring this up again. It's central casting. The audience is trying to be attracted now. And the truth is, what WWE is trying to do is the smart play, because they can't just go ahead and rely on a fan base that has been diehard to them going back to the 80s. You've jilted them. You've burned them so many times. And for some of them being so cynical and so stubborn, you're not going to satisfy the internet wrestling community. WWE is incapable of doing that. And that's on them. You insatiated, you gratified for, from when after WCW came in and started playing ball and really started pummeling the promotion and showing the weakness of the promotion in the mid-90s, only for WWE to come in and make a raw comeback and just take out their competition. The fury, there is no fury that WCW could give that Vince McMahon could not destroy. This is still the same Vince McMahon, even at 76 years old, that destroyed every other promotion in his path. The difference now is he is not going after AEW this time. Because this is why. At the time TNA was trying to go ahead and ruffle the feathers of WWE, there was still a pretty good sized audience that was watching. 6, maybe 7 million viewers could have been watching any given night. 10, 12 years ago. There was still a very strong audience that was still, maybe not so much, probably more about 5 million viewers, but that was still 5, maybe 6 million viewers you could have had that was still watching out of the maybe 10, 11 that might have been watching at the heyday. So we know that cable was going to be dropping a bit. Streaming was also going to take its toll, and social media absolutely did. When really people don't even talk about that, but social media, as soon as you get to 2007, 2008, and everybody's adopting social media, and Twitter and Facebook are just blowing it up, and then the thought process of watching Raw 3 hours on Monday nights and watching SmackDown, it was a little bit much, and saying, okay, do we want to go and dedicate our time to that? And some of the stars that they had, there's only so much they could do to really keep up. They didn't do a good job of themselves of developing talent, which is why NXT came when it did in 2012. All right. And then before that, they tried Tough Enough. They tried the NXT Competition Series. It wasn't as if after OVW and Deep South had dropped the affiliation of partnership with WWE. But remember, there was a time where you had that going on, and there was always something trying to be done to develop. And the development system went off in a tangent a little while after Triple H and whoever else and Steven Regal and the rest of the like that were running NXT down in Orlando. Because if it wasn't fully overseen by Vince McMahon, it was kind of just a step back. Okay, Triple H, this is your call. You're running the show down here. You do what you got to do, make the shows great, but more importantly, the only results that matter, it's not what NXT was doing with takeovers, people watching it, or the fact they could go ahead and sell out a couple of shows. Okay, they were able to sell some takeover shows when you had some really good roster there, and that roster was able to go ahead and then translate and resonate over to the main roster, which is all the horsewomen, which is the Shield and the Wyatt family, and a few other exceptions. After that, then you would get to the Ring of Honor purge. And the Ring of Honor purge, you had your Kevin Owens, your Sami Zayn's. You saw the people that were jumping in through Japan, working with Ring of Honor. Shinsuke Nakamura's notice, let's pull him in. Right? Did your Bryant, let's pull him in. You see all that. The Ring of Honor purge was then brought into play and just continuously was the ground where WWE would recruit stars from there. And they brought them in. And some of those were able to go in and hold. And those are some of the stars right now that some of them are still standing their ground there in the promotion on the main roster. But after that, that's it. But in the last couple of years, NXT has not been serving the purpose that it needed to be to give the type of talent that Vince was going to sign off on to get to the main roster, and there would be total faith to put in. And, there were a couple of stars. They did try to put some effort in to get them over, and it didn't work. But you knew which ones were not going to do well. The Adam Roses and the No Way Jose's, they were not going to work. Now, how do they screw up Andrade, El Idolo? How do they mess up? Andrade? How do they mess up Malachi Black? I mean, you can't be messing up on those guys. But then again, some of the other stars you had that came from Ring of Honor and other places, the Garganos, the Ciampas, the Coles, the Lees, they're good. They're very good professional wrestlers. But you should have known that what Vince wants and what Vince has always wanted, these guys had to go ahead and go above and beyond the call of duty. they couldn't just come in and be able to be great wrestlers. Because you know what? Daniel Bryan is that level of great wrestler, but he learned how to talk. He must have been able to talk promos before, but look what he did when he came over. And AJ Styles, that guy is a steady job right now for as long as he wants to be there. Because he has also held his own. And for right now, there's a bunch of stars they have on the main roster, no matter how old they are, because they're still holding on. The whole thought that you got to be, that the 40-year-olds is just too old to show on TV, well, that's gone. Even though in NXT 2.0, you need them to be young. But the roster can be old right now, and they can continue to be old because they have nobody else left. There's nobody in the bullpen left to go and pull in, and the bullpen's empty. So you only have you have your starters. It's like an NBA team. You got your starting five. You have no bench, and that's where WWE is right now. So we don't talk about the rebuilding so much as it is that they do not have a bench. They don't have stars that are ready to go ahead and make. If somebody gets hurt, if somebody gets pulled in, they don't have that. And the other thing they had to their advantage is that there have been few injuries because less house shows, the Thunderdome. So you just had the residency. So there was not so much of the travel. There was not so much of the touring schedule and the constant dates. Now that's going to pick back up. But you saw, even if there were certain stars, you still had people that were able to go and come in and brought into the mix. And when somebody became a champion, you're not having all these different champions that had to go and relinquish the belts for the most part. I mean, really, out of the Thunderdome, it was Becky Lynch, having a baby that made her relinquish the belt. But was there anybody else that had to do that? I can't remember. I mean, you don't have to think about the fact that how, Seth Rollins, wasn't he hurt at one point and had to drop it? Edge had to drop it. And then what else? Trying to think who else. I can't think. There's other names, but I can't think of it right now. But I'm not going to go and stop tape to go looking. But that's where we are. And the whole crux of things, there is a rhyme and reason that WWE is going to be doing that the IWC is not going to understand. And we're not going to get to know because things are so under tight wraps. Whatever Nick Khan is doing, the direction of the company, it's more of the talent needs to be talent that could be multi-purpose. It's not just what they do in the wrestling ring. It's how they can be marketed. It's how they can work with product placement. It's how they can work doing press tours, doing interviews on whatever they got to do. If they're doing anything non-profit promotional, all of that. So they want stars that are multi-purpose. It's not. So the thing is, anybody that comes in from NXT or wherever else, they have to have some kind of athletic pedigree, and they can't just have professional wrestling on their resume anymore. That's what you have to understand here. And the way they did Survivor Series tonight, I feel like doing this Big Four pay-per-view, they took a risk on doing this, but who are they going to lose as a result of this? From doing the promotion that they did, from the way they booked this show tonight, are they going to get a drop off on subscribers? Probably not. Okay, they're not losing pay-per-view buys. People buy the network at $5 or $10 a month, and that's it. So they might have not sold out the Barclays Center. From last I heard, I think it was like 10,000 sold. But that was before the setup for Friday Night SmackDown. But over the weekend, I wouldn't be so surprised that they probably had a bunch of tickets that they put at next to nothing, or they gave them away just to fill the damn venue. Because they probably did get 15,120, as they said. But I'm telling you, there were a lot of comps in there. And, it can't be that hard to get some people from Brooklyn or New York City. Hey, you want to go to the show? Here you go. The Barclays Center gets their money. I think it's their take. As for WWE, they're not. I don't know if they worry so much about this particular show being able to get what they're going to get. Then they also have to worry about the Barclays Center tomorrow, if they'll fill that out and sell it out. I think they took New York City for granted by booking the way the show they did, but it's because it's a show right around Thanksgiving weekend, leading up to Thanksgiving weekend. It's just something to do for people to go and go to.
It's like the circus coming to town. And I don't think they were necessarily, I mean, for the people that were going to go to the show and fill the rest of the venue, they're not going to be the diehard fans paying $500 on the gold circle down there on the ring. They're going to be the ones in the stands, probably, paying with a family, paying like 40 to 50, 60, $100 for the family to go to the show and get some kids to watch. Because the other thing that's most important is that WWE needs to go ahead and go after fans that can't go up to the IWC because a lot of them are very much older. Like if you had to go ahead and gauge on social media what there is out there, probably an older crowd. Just saying. Now, I could keep going on this, but I'm going to hold this right here because I want to get into the show itself. But it's going to take a little while to go ahead and explain this. And the best thing that's going to happen for me on this program is that we're coming up now to doing the year retrospective. It's time for me to go and start talking about the year in wrestling in 2021. But there is a lot to talk about. And when it comes to the transition of the WWE right now, based on the releases they've done all year long, you can see the transition of how this company is doing it. Like I said, it is from the Performance Center being a training ground for wrestlers, a polishing school. Now it's central casting and putting people through training to be multi-purpose. You just can't be a professional wrestler that can cut a standard issue promo. Can't do that anymore. So that cuts out a lot of names. And the ones that couldn't even cut the promos are definitely going to get cut quick. Now, does that mean that the stars they have in NXT on the way up to the main roster at some point, are they going to be able to pull that off? I don't know. But their pedigrees are different. And that's what matters to Vince. What probably matters to Nick Khan, who's been bought in on this as well, and his team. But what they did tonight, they had to promote Red Notice, the movie on Netflix, which they did. They had to promote Pizza Hut, which they did, and whatever else they had on their mind. But so they had their sponsors, they took care of them, and they did a few things to try to go and create a little bit of interest for feuds going forward. That'll be on television, which are kind of just outliers from what we had. That gives you something to benefit why you watch the show for 3.5 hours tonight, or 4 hours with the pre-show. So in the show tonight, I did not watch the pre-show match with Shinsuke Nakamura and Damian Priest. And Shinsuke wins via DQ. This match didn't even get on the main show. And by the way, it's not as if they didn't have time for it. Brian Alvarez pretty much collectively said it. Out of 186 minutes of the program, they had about 80 minutes of those that were commercials or promos. So there was at least about an hour of this 3.5 hour show tonight that was us. It was all fluff. It was all commercials. And that's the other thing. So Peacock had all those viewers on board, and for people like me that are not paying the Peacock Premium, I'm paying for the limited commercial aspect of Peacock. Yeah, I'm getting commercials for every damn match. No big deal to me. It's no skin off my back. But that was a lot of that was going on. And you're telling me you couldn't put 10 minutes together to put Nakamura and Priest on? Well, that tells you where they are. You know why? Because Shinsuke Nakamura and Damian Priest, mid-card champions that can get beaten and have gotten beaten in various times, whether it's in tag matches or in singles competition, and have rarely either one of them have defended their belts. I mean, doesn't happen much. Either one of them. We don't see. And you could do Intercontinental and U.S. Championship matches regularly on either Raw or SmackDown. No reason why you can't do that. But they don't. They're not. You could use them like almost like television titles, but they don't. And that's their choice not to do it. Okay. And so these guys, not worthy of being on the main show. So Damian Priest getting left out. That's sad. And Shinsuke Nakamura, I think for him, he should know and I'm sure he knows by now, that he is not being used at all because of the work rate that he's put in Japan, that brought him to the dance here. But he has adapted, and he's adopted the style of WWE that they expect of him. A little bit of his flavor that he has, but he is the entrance with the song, and Rick Boogs now playing it on guitar, and he is the anchor for Shinsuke Nakamura because Rick Boogs he needed to try to get over. And with Damian Priest, he's had some moments to shine, but it's just too bad that Damian Priest has had nobody really to go ahead and have as competition or a feud to have to really build him up and continue to build him up. Now, some people are going to probably disagree with me, and when I thought that Miz and Morrison were brought on board and the whole Bad Bunny thing, I think he did get some rub off of that. And I think him working with the Miz and Morrison did help him, elevate him a bit. But now he's kind of just left in limbo. For what, I don't know. But that's what they chose to do. Into the main show. Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair. Now, this feud, okay, part of it you couldn't do much because Becky was on maternity leave and she didn't have her kid. But before that, there was a time where they could have really thrown a long storyline on Charlotte and Becky. But they know with Charlotte and Becky, hey, they can always come back to it whenever they need it. And they needed it tonight because there was not much else. And the only real build we had, the only real friction that we had was that stupid title change. So the title switch. That was actually the only thing we got of benefit out of that stupid shit. Which it was just the viral stuff on social media that really built this match. The real off-screen animosity that came from it that was all reported all over the place. So that's what built the feud for the heat for this match. So all you got to do, Charlotte and Becky know what to do with this. That's all they did. They carried off of the heat that was built for this match, not even by the TV show, but by the stories that were heard, whether it was Charlotte talking to the press on a podcast or Becky Lynch talking to Ariel Helwani, all that. That's what you got. Hey, and that's important because that is getting the information out there when you're not able to go ahead and really get much of an audience except for the diehard audience to watch Raw or SmackDown, then why not go ahead and get these two stars on other shows and build up the story? Because that's what you have to do. You're not going to get anything out of the layman fan base. Like, you know what? They're going to go ahead and watch this match anyway because whatever they do, they need to try to draw new viewers in. And the new viewers are not going to be trying to go ahead and reclaim fans to get them back to, the glory days of WWE are going to be back again. No. You're going to have to go ahead and start looking for new viewers. And the new viewers, they're probably not used to the younger viewers, the younger fan base are trying to get. They're not going to be the ones that are going to sit 3 hours like we have done for all these years, watching on Monday nights or 2 hours on Friday nights. Maybe Friday nights. Because that show has more going on. Monday nights on cable? No, not at all. No, really. But that's what it is. They have to go and find certain stars that maybe will resonate. Oh, look, this person has a different look, different feel. Something aesthetically pleasing or satisfying. Something about the character that might just stand out that will be like, oh, okay. Because remember, younger fan base, shorter attention span. And also you got to think about how some of the stars or some of the things they might be consuming are video game based, animation based. So they're going to, and also anything that might be a universe based, like a cinematic universe, whether it's Harry Potter, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Marvel, whether it's DC, whether it's Ghostbusters, I don't care. It's all of that. They have to go and tap into what pop culture and what are people consuming on social media in general that might be of interest. So maybe you can find things were coming out of anime. Maybe that might get some interest. I don't know. Something. They are trying to figure it out. But they also have to create this where it's not so much for the younger crowd because they have to find something for everybody. The other part they have to consider is bringing in athletic specimens. Like, they have to bring in athletes, real, chiseled, athletic, multi-purpose, and they've worked in other sports. They have, it's seeing the warriors, the competitors, the gladiators coming to battle. The kind of spectacle that you get from wrestling. Let me assume from boxing. The kind of spectacle you get from UFC and MMA. You have to get that. Because we know that every time you hear about a show going on, whether it's a Logan and Jake Paul show that comes up, or whether it's another, heavyweight boxing match, or whether it's another UFC fight with Conor McGregor, or Daniel Cormier, or whoever else is on the card, you're going to hear about it, and people are going to talk about it. And it doesn't take much for people to go and follow that card or watch that show. Because the other thing, those are pay-per-views that are coming up. I mean, for the fact that you're not going to get that kind of effort or that kind of build being put onto regular TV shows. Maybe some people might adapt to it, but that's for Fox and USA Network to kind of figure out. And they're trying to go and figure out how to go and build a new fan base based on the interest of what they're trying to do with these wrestlers. Let's move along the card here. Okay, so as I said, you could put this in the main event. It would have been done just as well. It served the purpose of giving the fans something to watch for Survivor Series. You had to give a match that you had to make Survivor Series something special, so you resurrect Charlotte and Becky, which we have not seen in years, which goes back several years. Remember, the whole thing with the Royal Rumble and the whole pushing around and the attempt of the heel turn, and it didn't work. And that's when Becky Lynch became the man, and then everything else changed. There's a long story being told with them that's been told several times. So to go and just reheat this back up, that's fine. But they can't go ahead and just go into a long feud about it. So this fits the purpose of what this match needed to be. Because you're not going to go put these two together and put them in another long feud. Because they need to go and do the purpose of working with other stars. As we know, Becky Lynch is supposed to go and be dealing with Liv Morgan. That's what the plan is down the line for that. And then with Charlotte Flair, it could be Shotzi Blackheart, Toni Storm. It could be whoever they want. So it's work with the young girls. Because that's what they got to do. They got to build some stars of the future. And even if they might lose to a Charlotte or a Becky, hopefully they get some kind of rub as a result from it. But in the meantime, Bianca Belair will not be a part of that. Bianca Belair is on her own route without Charlotte and Becky to be involved anymore. And hopefully they figure things out with her. There's still a couple of stars in here that I got to talk about in this show that are still, there's something there that they can't lose out on the opportunity, because there are a couple of stars that have been able to get somewhere and they can't screw it up. Men's Survivor Series match. So with Team Raw, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley. Team SmackDown, Drew McIntyre, King Woods, Sheamus, Jeff Hardy, Happy Corbin. So Kevin Owens walking away. We'll get an explanation tomorrow. But I don't know what they're going to do here. I mean, like with Kevin Owens, there's not much of a reason for him to be in the match. And what they've been doing, his deal is with Big E anyway, or with, I don't know what else is working on. Or I guess with Seth Rollins, but I'm not sure. But Kevin Owens is just being used for the purpose. And for him not to have any major story here on television, or, like, I think he's just being used to be used, but I do believe that Kevin Owens is on his way out. I think when the contract's done, he will go back to professional wrestling. Could he go to AEW? Well, I don't know. There's no Ring of Honor for him to go back to. But obviously, with all the time he spent in WWE, he did have great matches over there for a good jump of his career. So he'll get somewhere. I don't know who. I mean, Impact Wrestling's been much more prone to taking former WWE guys with a long track record as opposed to taking some people that were just there for a little bit of a jump and are more noted for what they've done outside of WWE as opposed to what they did inside of WWE, right? Like, the whole point is, of the stars that were picked up by AEW, I would like to think that some of the stars that came out of AEW, that came to AEW from WWE, they didn't have such a long run there to make themselves feel like, well, they can't just be, you can't get the stereotype, the stigma of WWE off of them, right? That's what goes on. So when I look at FTR, when I look at Andrade El Idolo, and I look at Malachi Black, they weren't there long enough to put the stigma on them for them to not be able to go and be something else. That's what I feel like. FTR, they were there for a number of years, but just for almost like but most of their time was NXT. But on the main roster, they weren't there long enough to be stuck in a spot where they were going to be so embarrassed that people can't just, that layman professional wrestling fans were going to have trouble trying to go and see them get over and see them as something significant. It was going to be tough to get any of the kind of goofiness they had to go and do and get them out of there. Like, put it like this. For FTR, it was much easier for them to go and make the transition like they did, but it took them a while to get there to where they are now, because now they're one of the best tag teams there is in professional wrestling today. Now tell me this, when you see Viking Raiders, at some point when they're going to have to go and get dropped off, what happens to them? Because they've been putting the goofy, the replacement to the Ascension, basically, and the whole ruining of this Viking gimmick that was brought on there when there was actually War Machine or War Raiders. And what they've done to them ever since the call up to the main roster has been embarrassing. It has. And so you look at them and you're saying, okay, if those guys ever get dropped from contract at some point, which I can see that happening someday, or when their contract's done. I mean, do you ever see, how easy is it going to be for them to make it over? Meanwhile, with Impact Wrestling, and I'll make this point when I talk about Turning Point, they're much more about reclamation and taking stars that have been so embedded in WWE that it's just like, it's going to take forever to get the stench of WWE off of them. It's going to be so hard. And it's really amazing what some of those stars are able to go and try to do when I really think about with Impact Wrestling. But you're also talking about stars who have been there in that company with Vince, under the guise of Vince for a long time. But like I said, I'll bring that up when I get up to Turning Point. Okay. So Owens, I still look at him, and I still think Kevin Steen. I still think Steen kill. And some of that kind of spirit, that kind of energy rubbed off on him in his early start from the run of NXT when he turned heel on Sami Zayn, which was one of the best heel turns I've seen in WWE for a while at that point. And then his run up to Elimination Chamber, beating John Cena, all of that. Like, there's a lot there. But really, I'd say, like, after the whole, Festival of Friendship with Chris Jericho, there has not been much else that I felt like Kevin Owens has really been able to sink his teeth into, because everything else has been just kind of Shane McMahon, right? And then what else? Because after that, really wasn't much else to work off of. Anything that was really just something that was really magical. I think they just really felt like there was not much to do with him, except let's just put him and Sami Zayn together because they work so well. They're best of friends. I mean, why not bring them together? Off and on, off and on, off and on, which is what they did. So Kevin Owens, I feel like he's probably felt like he's done everything he could do in that company. He's not meant to be a lifer there, so he'll leave. And I think AEW or Impact Wrestling will benefit greatly with him. I don't know if Kevin Owens would fit in AEW or there would be any chance for him to be in there right away. But I think Impact Wrestling should absolutely take him. I feel like Impact Wrestling is willing to go and take a Kevin Owens and bring him in. For me, Kevin Owens would fit so great over there. Oh. Wait till Sami Callihan comes back and give me those two together. Shit. Magic. And I would say the same thing with I don't know. Was Eddie Edwards still? Yeah, Eddie Edwards was still around at the time with Kevin Steen. So those guys could go at it, right? And you never know. Now that you have Jonah arriving, the former Bronson Reed coming in, there's a lot of places to go with Kevin Owens over on that side. If he just gets to be Kevin Steen again, that would be magical to me, and I think would really make a big difference in Impact Wrestling in general. Maybe something, because I mean, the other problem with Impact Wrestling is just that, you know, they're in the same problem as well. For people to go and sit down and watch that 2-hour TV show on a channel that's not that easy for people to find. Maybe not everybody gets it, or people ever think about going to it, because that's the other thing. Like with the East USA or TNT, you at least have certain things you would watch. You might pass along those channels because you might watch it. But if there's the only reason you might watch a channel is for wrestling, because with Access TV, there's nothing else that really kind of compares. They don't have anything else that's combat sports related. They have all those old, you know, music, historical things, you know, or they have concerts. Like it's a music channel. It's an old person's music channel. It doesn't necessarily fit, but at least they have a time slot on Thursday nights for them, which is the most important thing for Impact Wrestling. They'll still have some kind of cable clearance for people to go and catch that show. But, you know, probably a lot of reasons where that audience has not really kind of wavered much higher than what it is, staying around 100 to 150,000 viewers on a regular basis. But anyways, in the match, I didn't realize that MVP was back with Lashley. And then the one focus that really caught my attention in this match was Lashley and McIntyre. And just to kind of have the bad blood between them kind of restart again. Next time we'll probably see it, Royal Rumble. Which that's going to probably happen with some of the other stars we have. So we don't know what they might do. But sometimes if you had feuds that had kind of rolled over, you might get a little bit of animosity that'll get used for a Survivor Series match like tonight or in the Royal Rumble. And that's pretty much it. Oh, there's not much else. I didn't know Sheamus was a face. Did anybody tell me when he turned into a face? I guess that's where he is now. I didn't realize that was what it was, but like the crowd basically treated him like a face. For the most, I mean, the whole story with Jeff Hardy and Sheamus, you know, fighting inside of a bar. We never, you know, oh, well, so they're lovey-dovey again. They're okay. They're doing 10 bells at a Bowery together. Not much of an explanation there. No animosity there. Continuity. It's not something here. Revisionist history? No, that doesn't happen here. This is a new audience that's watching this show. Not the stale, crusted IWC that complains about everything. So it doesn't matter. We can't get anything right with these guys. We can never get anything right with them. And the other thing, too, is they also probably recognize with the IWC is that their shit might be stale. But, hey, you know what? They're not going to watch that other product because they're pissed off at Cody and the Bucks and Kenny Omega and all those guys. Yeah. That's the other part I bet you the WWE also realizes. Is that the same fickle fans in the IWC, hey, God bless you if you listen to this show, okay? I'm only calling out the truth. And I'm not putting you down. I'm really not. But if you fans are fickle, right? Yeah. You're going to be fickle and complain about WWE, but then you already felt like, oh, well, there's already some animosity with AEW, so like, fuck them. You're not even going to worry about them because you're pissed off at them anyway. And I bet you the company knows, well, it's not like AEW is going to get some overburdening of more than 2-3 million viewers on their shows down the line. They probably don't think that because they feel like, well, they don't think there might be that many people that are the diehard professional wrestling fans, even though I think AEW can build some new organic professional wrestling fans if they do things right with some of the stars they have. They have a lot of younger stars. They are definitely pushing us in full gear. So you can see that, which is what I talked about last week with the different ways of booking that WWE and AEW do now these days in 2021. You can go back to that episode this past week when I talked about that. I thought I did a pretty good job talking about that. Now, here, it's saddening also about how Lashley and McIntyre, the crowd was kind of into it, but these guys, because you actually booked them as champions. And also, that Lashley and McIntyre were both Impact Wrestling stars, made the names for themselves, again, chips on their shoulder, got back, and accomplished what they wanted to do. They both collectively became champions. So now they're probably gonna be lifers. And so, okay, they get a little bit of a heat up right here, seeing them together, but that's it. But they're on different brands. They're not gonna get put back together. Okay. Rollins and Hardy are the last two in the match. And Rollins gets to say he's sole survivor. And they already put in the story in the match that Rollins considered himself the captain of the team. He was the leader. So now he could say that. They could use that as a storyline. And then we'll see what happens with Big E. But we know that's going to be something they're going to roll off of tomorrow night when they talk about it. I didn't bring this up earlier in the night, but Vince McMahon came out at the start of the night, which I missed, and I actually had to go and catch the clip. And then, of course, they replayed the clip later. That storyline, which we all know it sucks, but they did try to make sense of it, and it still wasn't good. For so many reasons. But I'm not going to spend 15, 20 minutes to kind of trying to pinpoint why it was so wrong. I can't insult your intelligence. You understand what happened here. So The Rock can't make it. This is a token of appreciation for 25 years. 25 years ago in WWE, he debuted a Survivor Series. Okay, so you got that. Fine. But then the stupid egg from Red Notice. So they're using this as an quote-unquote Easter egg, pun intended, to get you to watch the damn Red Notice. What the hell is this Cleopatra's egg all about? And then trying to say it's $100 million. So I'm going to guess, and I haven't watched Red Notice yet, but I will watch it because I need something to watch during the holidays. So I'm guessing that's what Gal Gadot was trying to go after. And as we know, The Rock and Ryan Reynolds were the people that were hunting down the spy as the agents trying to track down Gal Gadot, who was the jewelry thief. That's the story they try to tell. And I guess the Cleopatra egg was the prop that was in the movie that everybody should have got through. That was the crown jewels, right? That was the stone. Whatever. Jewel and Now, Reminiscing of Stone. Sorry, great movies, but I just brought them up. That's what that whole deal was about. So they brought that in to tie into the movie, which is what they did. And they decided, we're going to go with a plan. So Vince explains it, and he does two things with it. Number one, it's a tie-in Roman Reigns and The Rock. Whenever that Survivor Series, whenever that match comes to be, because that's got to be a match that Roman Reigns gets. I hope Vince can deliver Rock and Roman Reigns, because I want that match so bad, and nobody else wants it. That's a dream match that should happen. Like, that should be that. If Rock wants to come back and wrestle again, it's got to be against his nephew or whatever, his cousin, Roman Reigns. We got to have that match. So they put the story here, and Roman Reigns, all he has to say is, okay, that contract, that's probably how much, it probably costs as much as my new contract. That's all he had to say. Okay, that's fine. Number two, they do the thing where, the cronies, Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce, come over as the officials, and all of a sudden they come visit Vince, and the egg is gone. So now we're going to get an old-fashioned whodunit tomorrow on Monday Night Raw to spike ratings, because the entire roster is going to be there, and they're going to make this big old deal of trying to create a whodunit and see what they can do with it. Okay, that's all we're going to get tomorrow. We'll have to. Now we have a cliffhanger to go and see the payoff. Can they find the egg? Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter to me, but that's what they want to go and do. Now, 25-man Battle Royal, match number 3 tonight. It's the Almost show. And Almost is still so damn green. And they did book him to be like the big monster, roar, and he's eliminating people over. 12 eliminations. They gave him what they gave Braun Strowman at the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, I forget how many years ago. But right when Braun Strowman was really kind of hitting the stride as a singles competitor removed from the Wyatt family. And when they wanted to create Monster Among Men, that was the time, because Braun Strowman became, a guy they were really into at that moment, right? And he had also, I think, 10 or 11 eliminations in that Battle Royal at WrestleMania. But this was Survivor Series, And they tied in The Rock's 25th anniversary. Okay. But the other thing they did was product placement for Pizza Hut. So you get the triple decker. They're showing that on TV. I guess almost thought he was going to get that along with the win of the Battle Royal. I forget why they even had that there. But Street Profits, after the match, they take the Tastemaker, the triple box for Christmas time. They took it and started throwing pizza slices out to the crowd. Of good old greasy Pizza Hut. So I'm not a big Pizza Hut guy. I'm more of a Domino's guy myself. I prefer Domino's much more. But either which way, that's the whole purpose of that. And Omos, he was okay. I just don't. I mean, yeah, AJ Styles, they're kind of using him. It's more for, because when Omos is paired with AJ Styles, it's more for AJ Styles. But Omos by himself, like they're not going to give him a manager. They're not going to give him anybody that's going to put across. But they have him out there, and he's really not gotten much farther than where he is since WrestleMania, when I talked about he was getting a spotlight on him. And they did that, but it hasn't meant much. Almost hasn't gotten over any better. His wrestling has not gotten much better. Like, you can't put him in a ring right now and say, okay, let's see if we can get something out of him. Because he can't. I don't think we can get this guy right now to go and give us a good, decent 5-10 minute match at this point. I don't think it's possible. Not like he couldn't, but he's just not ready yet. He needs a lot more time to train. A lot more time. So, SmackDown, Raw, Tag Team Champions at each other, RK Bro against the Usos. This was a good match. It was a good match, but it is Orton standing out. RKO out of nowhere. And Randy Orton continues to get the win. Where there is a good rub for Riddle off of Randy Orton. And Riddle's one of those guys that has been built well. And this whole tag team thing has worked very well for Riddle and Randy Orton. So that Riddle is working well off of this. And we know this is one of the stars they definitely want to go and try to stick behind. That they are doing a somewhat decent job of building up, of getting him over. Now, can they get him to the point after the whole deal when eventually the tag team is broken up and Riddle has to go singles? I think they could definitely build him up to a main event. I could see him as a champion someday. He's not going to beat Roman Reigns, but he is on the Raw side where he could be down the line. He could be a WWE champion. I could see that in a couple of years. I don't have a doubt that he couldn't be that. Like, he's got the work for it, and he's good. So they could do that with him. And I mean, that's Matt Riddle fits right for this company, and there's a future for him. So keep working on what they're doing with that. That's working. Then we go into the Survivor Series match for the women. Team Raw, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Carmella, and Queen Zelina. Team SmackDown, Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, and Toni Storm. Couple of observations in this match. The crowd is entertaining themselves in this match. They're doing the wave. So when you've given us the Battle Royal, and, you know, that's an RK Bro and the Usos, people, you know, the crowd was interested in that somewhat. But you can give us a Survivor Series match for the women. Yep, they started kind of just twiddling their thumbs. If they're going to start doing the wave, they're not paying attention to the match. They're not caring. You know why? Because they know it's going to be a long damn match. Like, I didn't see how long the matches were tonight, but I have no doubt that overall, I bet you this match, because he knew it was going to be long. So they were just going to come along with it, and they were going to wait because they're waiting for the main event. They want to see Roman Reigns and Big E. Otherwise, they're not waiting for much else. They're just going to sit around and hold on and just see what they're going to do with it. And that's it. So looking at the matches themselves, I got to go look at what their actual the run times were. So the women's match was 23 minutes. The men's match was 30 minutes. Becky and Charlotte got 18 minutes. And the Battle Royal got 10 minutes. RK Bro and the Usos got 15 minutes. There you go. And 22 minutes for the main event. So what we got now is Bianca and Sasha. I think people woke up to see that. And I said to myself, Bianca and Sasha, I know, man, this company just cannot, they don't have patience. And they feel like their audiences have it, but really, internally, they don't have patience at all. They could have definitely let Bianca and Sasha continue to build their feud. They gave them a couple of months, WrestleMania through SummerSlam, and then when the touring came back, the pressure was on. They felt the heat. They had to go do something at SummerSlam. Sasha couldn't work that show, and so they said, all right, here comes Becky. And to hell with continuing the storyline with Sasha and Bianca. They didn't even do the best part, because Sasha and Bianca, they had a whole lot more story they could tell. And Bianca could have held the belt a little bit longer, or they could have done a title switch and continue to have Bianca chase, which I was hoping that we were going to do at SummerSlam, that Sasha would have won and that Bianca would have been chasing back after the belt. Rematch. We never got that. I know people really were excited for that Bianca-Sasha match. I was. To see that Bianca, I know she had to work with what she had to work with, but Sasha comes back after a time off doing some work on some TV projects, right? I think it was Mandalorian. She's doing the promo stuff for that. And she's back, and then we only get a month build for this match again, the rematch for Bianca and Sasha, because remember, Sasha never lost that belt. I mean, she lost the belt, but never got a chance to get that rematch. And it never happened, except they had to go and do the three-way with all three of them, and that blew off that feud altogether. And then the switch to the draft. So they did that, and it sucks. Now, so Becky and Sasha can have their feud. That's fine. But I did want Bianca and Sasha to have more time. We never got that. We were denied that. So we get the move here, where Bianca is given a chance to go and be looked at as a showcase hero in this match. Also, the crowd got several times into CM Punk chants. That's obviously the IWC voicing displeasure throughout the night of this show, because they're also voicing displeasure because they need to do something. And you know what WWE is going to say to themselves? Oh, but we're in New York. If we're in Chicago, we'll get the same thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're not going to care. Now, so they did what they did with the SmackDown team kind of falling apart. But first of all, it was the Raw team that could not get together right. Carmella gets herself knocked out. Then, whatever else with Queen Zelina. And Rhea Ripley, they gave some time. They gave her a little bit of showcase time out there because she was former women's champion. You would forget about that with the whole thing with Nikki Ash right now, or Nikki ASH, and that whole women's tag team thing, which has been... I mean, that talk about being anchored. I mean, Rhea Ripley is trying to go and just come up for air, being anchored with those tag titles. Those things feel like weights. They are holding her down really bad. If everybody was looking for Rhea Ripley to come back from somewhere, and she's not going to be anywhere near going after Charlotte Flair in the NXT title because Charlotte Flair's over the other side. But the best of that Rhea Ripley ever got was working with Charlotte Flair. Not anybody else. And think about it. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Rhea Ripley's gotten the most benefit from working with Charlotte Flair, but there's been nobody else she's worked with significantly that really has made her stand out and look good. No. So in the match itself, Bianca is left as the last Raw member, 4-on-1 situation. They decided to go ahead and make the SmackDown team fizzle apart. I hated it. Bianca Belair deserved to get a chance to go ahead and take all these stars out and be lone survivor. She still won the match as lone survivor, but it still sucked. Listen, to build on her career, on what they've done with Bianca Belair to build her up. You know why she's still more or less over? She wasn't so much over within the match, but she's still over in a sense anyway because she wins all the time. But she's also not one to the point where she's like John Cena out there or Becky Lynch and we're just tired of seeing her winning. But she's won a lot more than she's lost. And when she has won, they've been significant. Royal Rumble, she won that match. She won at WrestleMania. And she gets this at Survivor Series. Okay. So you got that. And so Bianca's had a very good year. And also has been a whole lot of things when it comes to promoting all together. SPs, promotional things. Like, she's doing just fine. So Bianca is doing very well. And next year should be a bigger year for her. Because I also think that in this time, even dealing with Becky Lynch for a while, that it did help to make tweaks to the character that was well needed for Bianca Belair to get over. Because I like the transition where she is now. No more the okay, and none of the sass. Take the sass out. It's not natural. Now, maybe she does it in real life, but it doesn't feel right here, and I don't think it resonates to the crowd. I like the serious, superhuman strength type of Bianca Belair. The way she is right now is great. And all that WWE's got to do is much like where Riddle is in the right place to get over as a main eventer. As a constant main eventer. At the level of Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks. Because Sasha Banks don't even have to have the belt. She feels main event. I want Bianca to get there. She's almost there. And it's unfortunate she's not going to get another title to go ahead and be able to do that. As long as Becky Lynch is champ, I don't think we're going to get that anywhere time soon. And that's going to suck. Unless they do something where Bianca goes back, wins the Royal Rumble, and goes after Becky again. Now, that's a story you could tell for WrestleMania. We could get Bianca coming back to that match again. Becky and Bianca again. I would love to see that. And make it where Bianca wins the Royal Rumble again. I don't know. I don't want to see her off the not being able to go and chase the belt. I think she's good there. And that's another pillar. It's just like where AEW talks about pillars. WWE really does have their own pillars. They really do. Riddle absolutely can be that. Bianca Belair absolutely is that. I think they could definitely do it with Damian Priest. And then when I look at the SmackDown side, they're kind of just, you could tell that on the SmackDown side, the way they did Shotzi and Toni Storm tonight, I don't know how long they're going to be for this company, but they're NXT stars. They're not necessarily going to be too much of a difference here that are going to look anything special. If you took Shotzi right now, who did not come out in the tank tonight, and does she come out in the tank as of late? Because she doesn't have that tank, I don't know what to tell you. With Toni Storm, I don't think she comes out in leather anymore. She comes out in something different. But Toni Storm, they're going to try to make her much more for the body than it is for the wrestling. I hope you realize that. That Toni Storm might be... I feel like Toni Storm, they could try to make her in place of Mandy Rose of what she meant to the main roster. Before she decided to go and change her hair dark and go Toxic Attraction. Now, Mandy Rose could very much come back up with Toxic Attraction down the line. I think that's going to be coming up sooner than later. Probably even after WrestleMania, in my opinion. But, Vince and Bruce like their blondes, so why not Toni Storm? I mean, she definitely has the looks for it. But is she going to stand out enough to say, okay, is that accent going to be too much? Or, they're going to be very, nitpicky about it. Now, what if Lacey Evans comes back? Maybe that's, we'll see, because they like their blondes. Dana Brooke gets put by the wayside, and then Toni Storm becomes the Dana Brooke of that side. I don't know. But they're not necessarily using them for anything special, and I'm surprised they're actually still there. Shotzi, Toni Storm, nothing against their ability. I'm surprised they're still there. I'm still surprised they're getting a chance on the main roster as they are. So Bianca wins the match. The way they booked it, it sucked. I hated it. And Shayna Baszler also just getting... Now, with Shayna Baszler, I think what they did was they did create a little animosity with her and Sasha Banks. So before anything happens with Charlotte has what she's going to deal with, but I think Sasha and Shayna Baszler, I think they're going to they might build a program off of that. Maybe it'll just be on TV, or they could build it more, but I'd like to see Shayna Baszler and Sasha Banks. I think they did that just to kind of create a little bit of animosity. They can fall back up, but they got to fall back up on that Friday. And I hope they do. I'm trying to be constructive here. I can't just shit on this show. I know everybody else in the IWC is going to hear that from everybody else in the of my wrestling podcast brethren. God bless you guys. I know you're going to shit on this show. I know you're going to really bury this show because it does deserve it quite a bit. The build was bad, and some of the things they did with the booking on this show tonight sucked. Okay, they did lay an egg in the middle of the show. No doubt about it. Now, Big E and Roman Reigns. So there's a lot to say about this. For me, I felt right off the bat that, I've been critical about Big E, and it's not his fault. But if you're going to make him that main single star, you had to detach him from New Day. But they couldn't help it because the New Day thing, the merch, all the stuff that's going on with that, they have to keep that going. They have no choice. Plus, for Big E, he still fits the part of like, okay, we can still put him out there, and he needs the New Day, much like the New Day needs Big E. That's the one thing I think they're learning about this as well, is that the New Day, they need each other. And they can still, there's a whole lot there because people haven't gotten tired of them yet. They haven't. Now, everything's kind of individual. Kofi's hurt. And, you got the King Woods thing. Oh, no. Well, I guess the storyline hurt, right? And then the whole King Woods thing is still continuing. I don't even know why. After Roman Reigns destroys the crown, the scepter, the throne, why don't we just get rid of the King Woods character? Why don't we just let him go back to Xavier Woods and go back to New Day? Why do we do that for? I don't know. But, okay. He can still wear like he can still wear the robe. All right, that's fine. Doesn't mean much to me. I don't care for the King Woods gimmick. Doesn't matter. And I just think they always do a shit job with booking Xavier Woods. I mean, the guy is now that's another guy, multi-talented. He's working on G4 now. He's doing Attack of the Show. He does the up, down, down show. Multi-purpose. He's grabbing the gamer audience. He's grabbing those that might be much more a younger audience. He's drawing fans in. And he's doing stuff that's outside of the normal gamut. So for him, he serves a great purpose outside of the ring. They don't necessarily book him great inside the ring. For the most part, they gave him the King of the Ring tournament win, became king. Other than that, I mean, that's one of the most significant things he got, besides the fact he's been multi-time tag team champion. But as a singles competitor, him getting a mid-card title, which is probably beneath him, or ever becoming WWE or Universal Champion, I don't think it's in the cards for Xavier Woods. I don't think they're ever going to book him that high. If anybody was going to get booked like that, Kofi was one because his previous time with and WWE, he got his chance to be up there on top because of all the time he spent, all the work he's done. And we always can appreciate that Kofi got that. But, this company's not going to be good at booking a Kofi Kingston as a champion. And, the fact that he got a 6-month title run was more than I ever thought I was going to get. But good for him. He got that, and he can always you can always hold on to that and never let it go. It happened. It's real. Same thing with Big E here. So enjoy the time you have it, my friend. But the way they keep booking, it's this match didn't mean much to me. I felt like the chemistry was kind of off. It wasn't until about 8 minutes left in the match. So out of those first 15 minutes or so, I felt like there was not much going on here. The crowd was was sitting on their hands. And that sucks. That's not what's supposed to happen. But what they did was they did bring this crowd and woke them back up. Because what happens is Act 2, right? Act 1, they're kind of go through the motions, and Roman Reigns is taking advantage on Big E. And then Big E does get his offense in here and there. But they did this for Big E to get him over. 3 Superman punches, and Big E hulks up. He gets the superhuman John Cena. When Seth Rollins has been champion, he's also gotten that too. Like it's that thing where Bobby Lashley, when he was champion, also had that too. Where you get these guys that all get that superhuman, oh my goodness, nothing can stop them. Nothing's hurting them. They're coming right back up. That's exactly what Big E got tonight. And that's the first time he ever got it. it's out of nowhere that he gets superhuman with Roman Reigns. They had him kicking out of spears. Like, they did a lot with him. And that last few minutes, Big E was throwing belly-to-belly suplexes, just tossing around Roman Reigns. That looked good. Kind of had that Brock Lesnar kind of feel to him. Belly-to-belly suplex. Got a couple of near falls. Then there was one spear that Roman Reigns got to Big E, and Big E kicked out. They gave him a couple of big kickouts. They gave him the superhuman strength. They gave him a big ending. Couple times were a near fall. So they gave him that in the last 6-7 minutes of the match. That was the story. So Big E got a rub. And that's the best rub he's ever going to get in his career. And for a little bit, I almost thought he got was a little bit huffing and puffing a lot. But, I mean, he got a second win. And I don't know if that was just part of a storyline as well. Maybe it was. But Big E probably had, I still think there's another gear in Big E that would have even been better if the story would have been told right. But, Big E's always going to be New Day. And he's typecast. So when he has the gear and he comes out, he's still going to feel like New Day. And there's no way to change that now. Same thing with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. They're all New Day. You can't, they're typecast. They are in their gimmick. That's what's going to happen. And there's no way to change that. Now, they've all found success in the gimmick, in the faction. That's okay. But I think there's only so much shelf life for Big E to be champion here. And so I feel like Seth Rollins is going to be the focus now, as we already know. Seth Rollins was already getting a little bit of the, some one-upsmanship already on Big E before tonight. And then they took a little time off because they had to go and do the Usos and the New Day and the Bloodline stuff and put that all together. Now, I don't know what King Woods does after this, but obviously he was getting beat down by people over by his team, by the Raw team over on the SmackDown side, and they did with him. Especially with Bobby Lashley, ragdolled him with the Hurt Locker and took him out. Because in the match itself, as King Woods did not eliminate anybody. That was it. And so the other thing too is also saw Happy Corbin and Finn Balor. They also had a pinfall. So it was a Happy Corbin and Finn Balor become another thing once again. We've already saw those guys together. Maybe they'll do it one more time because Happy Corbin has a new gimmick and Finn Balor has changed his gimmick a little bit. So they could always rehash that gimmick, that feud again, for all we know. But I don't know what they do next with King Woods. And that's with Big E. I think Seth Rollins will take the belt off of him down the line. And it's not to be putting down Big E at all. I think he has served a great purpose for that belt. But is the typecasting of New Day is always going to make it where I feel like he's going to get this title, this belt here. He's a lifer with the company. But I think that after this title run, he won't get another one like that again. I don't see him repeating championships anytime at all. Because some guys are just going to get it one and done. That's it. All right. Man, I went longer than I thought. Oh, my God. I'm still going. Okay. I got to finish this up here. Let's go quickly to Turning Point because I did watch that Saturday night. And the reason why is because it was live. But either which way. Finn Juice beat Rohit Raju and Raj Singh. And Finn Juice, I feel bad because it just not felt like they're working here. But, man, they're not giving much. Like, they're doing the whole Bullet Club and the Elite kind of stuff with the Good Brothers and all this and that. And it has not felt like there's been much to talk about. Jordan Grace defeated Chelsea Green for the Impact Digital Media Championship. Those were all pre-show matches. In the show last night, Chris Sabin beat Ace Austin. And I feel bad that Ace Austin continues to be anchored Madman Fulton. Which Madman Fulton come along with something else. Because I feel like with Ace Austin, they're going to keep putting Madman Fulton in such a focus that Ace Austin cannot, he's such a heel, he can't just, be able to go on his own and have that level like he did against Tessa Blanchard when he was trying to go after the world title. And, if Ace Austin never got to be X Division champion again, I think down the line Ace Austin should get the X Division title and go option C. Maybe that's what they go with him next year. and they should do that if they decide to go back to that again. Don't know. We'll figure it out. Actually, I do like the fact that Scott D'Amore actually made mention of that down the line. I don't know if it's going to be hard to kill or not, but the knockouts are going to get an Ultimate X match. Oh, been waiting for that for a while. We need that. Knockouts Ultimate X match. Book it. Let's make that happen because that sounds exciting. Now, other matches, you had Heath and Rhino beating Violent by Design. And the thing is, you know, Heath and Rhino, they're just rehashing the same form of storyline they had as a tag team in WWE, which sucks because they're not trying to do anything special with Heath and Rhino to get them in a different spot. But the Violent by Design gimmick was to give something, okay, so Rhino was under the trance and Heath was helping him to snap out of it. And so, you know, Rhino came in and helped out Heath when they did have their last time together dealing with the Violent by Design team. So they had that happen. But for me, I think, for TV, I guess, if they fit the spot. I wish there would be other people that would get this spot. Some younger guys would have this spot if they're not able to do more with Rhino and Heath. Because they're pawns here for Violent by Design, which is fine. I want Violent by Design to have somebody else to deal with. Because I just don't care for Heath and Rhino in the storyline here. And this is where one of those things where, you know, with Heath, they did a little bit something with him on the singles front, with the whole contract thing, and now he's here. But he doesn't feel like much different than what he was as Heath Slater, and Rhino feels like what he was in WWE with a tag team together. But I mean, hey, if the crowd likes it, right? Rich Swann being VSK, it was just a match. I mean, we didn't get Brian Myers, which is, I mean, I do think there's something where Brian Myers feel like is something different. They're kind of giving almost like that Kevin Nash thing from a few years ago, more than a few years ago when he had him training the X Division guys. You know, having his faction with Sam Beal, that now Sam Beal split off and, you know, got rid of the brainwashing that that Brian Myers was doing, but he still has VSK and Ziggy Dice, you know, as his henchmen. So there's something there with Brian Myers. Like I'm starting to feel something about what he's doing with that gimmick. The most professional wrestler. That's starting to rub off on me a little bit. Matt Cardona and W. Morrissey. Matt Cardona's got much more of a buzz outside of Impact Wrestling, working for GCW, as we know, as a heel. But Matt Cardona works as a face here. At W. Morrissey, you know, it's not bad. Moose interferes in the match. That's the real story. Because of these two stars, Matt Cardona or W. Morrissey would be number one contender for Moose and the world heavyweight title. So Moose is just trying to make sure, even though he screwed over Morrissey at Bound for Glory, he always did tell Morrissey behind the scenes, even after Bound for Glory, that after all the stuff that Morrissey did with Moose, he was still gonna promise him that title shot. So that's why he went ahead and rigged the match and got in and interfered on Matt Cardona, spearing Matt Cardona so that W. Morrissey could get the pin. Impact Knockout Tag Team titles, Inspiration versus Decay, and the rematch blow-off. Who's next? And I actually like Inspiration here. You know, it looks like they can be more themselves and not so goofy. And, you know, it's with the tag team titles, you just need to have some kind of, you actually have a defined tag team and you put them together. Like, I don't know who they put up next. I mean, I think Madison Rayne, Tenille Dashwood are the next group that go after the Inspiration myself, which we haven't seen them on TV for a bit. That's where I think things go next. But Inspiration here, you know, they've kind of repackaged themselves a little bit. They look great. Their wrestling is not too bad. I don't think the match they had with Decay was that bad. And, you know, with Decay, it was like, okay, we're going to move along to Inspiration here. And Decay, here we go. We're going to move along from there. And now we're seeing that, you know, with Decay and all them, they're going to bring back Wrestle House. So, you know, there's the things that they do with some of the stars they have in the company. They're kind of just for fodder, and they do other things with them. So Wrestle House, which I really enjoyed during pandemic, I thought that was one of the better things they did, you know, earlier this year with Wrestle House. So they're going to bring that back. They brought back Johnny Bravo, Johnny Swinger, like all that shit's coming back. I like that. I like Russell House coming back, so that's going to be fun. Let's bring that back. X Division title, Trey Miguel wins over, Laredo Kid. Shit, man. I mean, Laredo Kid, I'm surprised. Like, Impact, he's just working as a fodder. And I think he also worked the same thing over in, was it NWA as well? Well, he's just working shows. Like, Laredo Kid's not going to get, over, but if he's in AAA, he's getting the big deal. Like, this is the same guy that fought for was Mega AAA champion against Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega won the belt at Triple M Mania over him, right? It was Laredo Kid that had that belt. But he's not booked as high up on the card, in America as he is in Mexico, which is kind of weird. Anyway, Trey Miguel, they're booking him strong as the X Division champion, which is good. Steve Macklin, former Steve Cutler, he's getting something more out of him, but he's a little bit too vanilla and generic for me, so I need something more out of him. But Miguel wins. He needs a new feud. I don't know who that's going to be next. And I know with the Ace Austin, Chris Sabin thing I mentioned before, yeah. So Ace Austin did get the win. I should have made mention of that, but I don't like the parody booking. But yeah, Chris Sabin, I guess he has to get his win back. All right. I don't want to see a rubber match between those two. I'd like to see if Ace Austin goes after Trey Miguel, personally. Or, I don't know. Let's just do something there. But I think Ace Austin and Trey Miguel would be a nice place to go right there for that. Then you got Impact Knockouts title, Mickie James, Mercedes Martinez. So Mickie James gets, the win, and what was a good match between those two. And Mercedes Martinez, yeah, I think was a good opponent to have for Mickie James here as a buffer for Deonna Purrazzo coming back, which we didn't know when she was going to come back, but they put her here after the Bound for Glory deal. So they come back, and now Deonna got back her heat, and now we can see Deonna Purrazzo, Mickie James again, and keep that story going, which is fine with me. Let's have it. Josh Alexander did not wrestle tonight, but he was going to go ahead and talk about Moose in a promo that he has some time to go and talk in the ring. And this gave us the introduction to Jonah, the former Bronson Reed. And they gave Jonah a hell of a thing to go ahead and get started into this right now. So Josh Alexander, Jonah, instant feud because Jonah attacks the former Impact champion. Several frog splashes on Josh Alexander, left him bleeding from the mouth. And Jonah automatically looks badass. Good. And Jonah's the heel. I like that even better. I didn't look at him so much as a face and NXT like others, but I get what they're trying to do there. So Jonah could come in here and definitely make a big difference now. And people obviously should have noticed what was going on here. That, when him coming to Impact Wrestling, hopefully a few more people might actually go and check out their show. Impact World Tag Team titles, Good Brothers beating the Bullet Club, Chris Bay, Hikuleo. So this is the lower end of the card. There's no Jay White here. We're not getting, for the Bullet Club, we're not getting Gorillas of Destiny and all this kind of stuff. We're not getting the big name New Japan stars. We're getting the opening card of Wrestle Kingdom type stars when it comes to Hikuleo, and then adding Chris Bay into the mix, much like how Chaos has added Orange Cassidy and the rest of the best friends. So, Chris Bay, I kind of feel like he's been a little bit lost in the shuffle here, but it's been fine. Chris Bay's, getting some time here in tag team action. I don't know if he's necessarily really meant for to be there, but I get it. I mean, Chris Bay could definitely get over being attached here, but we need more time with that and maybe some other opponents. I'm honestly getting tired of Good Brothers holding on to the belts, but the cheap win, they keep doing this, and that's the ongoing gimmick, so they're going to keep going with that. Impact World title. So I will say this, Eddie Edwards and Moose, they already had a feud before. So to restart this up again, and this is where Eddie Edwards just works well, period. I guess this turning point. This is an Impact Plus pay-per-view. The interest of me, I already knew, these shows, they never title change, ever, on Impact Plus pay-per-views. They will do something on the Big Four pay-per-views, but not these monthly shows, not so much. But it was a live show, was not taped, so that interested in me. And I'm saying, okay, I'm definitely going to watch it because I know they're going to lead the storylines, which they did. And I thought, live show, they're going to give us something here. So Eddie Edwards and Moose delivered. What a damn... Now, that was brutal. I mean, Eddie Edwards doing, Canadian Destroyer from top of the ladder down to another ladder. Almost like basically like buckles his knee and ankle at the same time. And Moose taking all this shit as well. Like, damn, Moose works hard, man. Eddie Edwards, they make him the hardcore star, so they have to put him in this type of match. Full Metal Mayhem. Okay, it was brutal. These guys work really damn hard. And, little creativity, having the chain wrapped around a tape. So Eddie Edwards tried to do the Boss Knee Party, but not enough. Moose was still able to win. And Moose being booked strong, booked like a piece of shit, he's being booked well as world champion. So the payoff to his world title, I'm liking it a lot. I think it's very well done. So I like the booking of Moose. He is the one thing that really interests me for the most part of anything else on Impact Wrestling. And we know that W. Morrissey's coming up down the line, so we're going to have that. And if W. Morrissey, I think he's been kind of like, in the gray area in terms of being, he's like cool heel babyface. So I'm guessing W. Morrissey will be the babyface now against Moose. And that's what they're going to have to build to, is Morrissey turning face. So which is what I think that will happen coming up here. And even W. Morrissey, I need something else with him. Maybe him working against Moose will definitely step up W. Morrissey. I mean, it kind of feels like we can get to that point. Okay. The other thing I want to bring up as well are the 8 releases, which I kind of referenced already. And man, this show's going along. It's going to be an hour and a half, guys. I didn't realize it was going to go so long, but there was so much to say. And I know there's other stuff I can talk about this week on the show later up. But hey, I went past an hour. I didn't expect it, but, what can I say? All right, let me go ahead and make this point about the releases. So they did 8 more. It really sucks. I mean, it's sad to go and see what they're doing anyway of what they did. So 8 more stars are let go. John Morrison is among the top names that are left. So it's John Morrison, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Top Dollar, Ashanti the Adonis. So all of Hit Row is now gone. Tegan Knox, Dre Maverick, Shane Thorne, Jackson Riker. Okay. With John Morrison, if you follow along with what I was saying at the top of the show, multi-purpose, I mean, John Morrison got his run here, got a contract here, worked his run, did his stuff with Miz and Morrison. They went through that. They're not going to, even though Miz might have turned on Morrison, it doesn't matter because they're not going to go ahead and, give us anything of a kind of a feud that's going to matter between those two. We're not going to get that. Morrison played the purpose. He played the gimmick. He played goofy. He did Johnny Trip Trip. He did his best. And even some shit matches they had with the zombies and all this stuff, and doing the stuff with the oranges and, the little kiddie pool, all that. Yeah, it's all stupid, but, that's what they did. So they got their run out of Miz and Morrison doing all that during the Thunderdome era. After that, John Morrison, they're not going to use him in the purpose they would do because, they also have Jeff Hardy on the main roster. They're not going to have John Morrison fit the kind of same role. So, but John Morrison could absolutely go back to Impact. And I'd love to see him go back as Johnny Impact. If not there, I'll tell you what. If Taya Valkyrie and John Morrison decide not to go to Impact, please go to MLW. There's a lot more story you could be doing in what MLW is doing right now with the Lucha Underground sets. Because we already see that Lucha Underground is starting to make its way back in to MLW. Obviously with the team that's over there, Krista Joseph, who is joined along Court Bauer, former SmackDown writers together, and the Lucha Underground stuff is now getting intertwined into Azteca Underground, and Cesar Duran, the former Dario Cueto, which we all enjoyed that stuff for a while. Well, they're bringing that back because now Cesar Duran and Katrina are now, in bed with each other, working on something new, which we don't know what that's the whole thing, but the War Chamber match they had, and Hammerstone and his team wins. Jacob Fatu turns face, and a great breakup of the Contra unit. I thought it was a very fun thing to see there. So Contra Unit gets completely blown up. Mads Kruger and Jacob Fatu are going to have their war of words, and Jacob Fatu totally turns face. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Jacob Fatu will be an awesome face after all this time as heel, because the truth was, in part of Contra Unit, we didn't want to boo Jacob Fatu. We had to, because he was part of Contra. But Jacob Fatu was such a fucking good wrestler. Doing the come on, man. Like, doing moonsaults to go and win matches and stuff. Like, that guy just is freak of nature. Jacob Fatu is a damn good wrestler. So now he gets to turn face. Him, Hammerstone, you got some great baby faces on that roster. Richard Holiday is now face, and he was in that War Chamber match. You got the Judge, EJ Nuduka, former NXT guy, Ezra Judge. So now you got some really good baby faces there. You could have John Morrison and Taya Valkyrie come back into MLW, bring back Slamtown, bring back the Hollywood Underground. Like, you could totally bring the Hollywood crew back over and let them do something with John Morrison and Taya Valkyrie over there. And obviously Taya Valkyrie, they already know there's a women's division over there. They could do something with her. I don't know. It's just a thought. I mean, that would be kind of cool. And then, when it comes to Swerve, Shane Strickland or Killshot, he's going to find work somewhere else. I mean, he could go back to, and nobody talks about the fact, listen, you can go talk about Swerve Scott and what he did in NXT. To me, he still stands out as the first MLW World Heavyweight Champion in the return, the relaunch, the reboot of MLW on Fusion. And bringing Shane Swerve Strickland back brought into the mix and bring him a spotlight. That is Court Bauer that did that. If not, now, part of it would be, you could say, yes, Lucha Underground, Krista Joseph. So there's absolutely room for Shane Swerve Scott to go ahead and come back to MLW, because he's got some people he knows there. So he could go back there. They could very well take Hit Row over there. I mean, if Shane Swerve Scott feels like he's worked long enough with AJ Francis and Ashanti Adonis and wants to go and take him over, like, they've already broken up Injustice. I mean, Jordan Oliver was already let go. So we don't have, that kind of a crew yet. So you could absolutely bring Hit Row, change them into something else, and bring them over. I mean, that was what they were kind of doing already with the Leo Grush gimmick, being like the musician, doing the studio stuff. They could always go back to that gimmick again, reincorporated with Hit Row in MLW. Keep an eye on MLW, especially if they get themselves on the map now with Vice TV and what they're doing now, because I like where they're going with things. It's interesting, and they definitely are. They definitely have some things going on with the Raw, and with them, MLW has all the makings to replace Ring of Honor in the landscape of professional wrestling. MLW has everything it needs to build themselves up as the next Ring of Honor. I really believe that. With Krista Joseph and Court Bauer running the show there, incorporating the Lucha Underground elements to the MLW elements, and then you bring in a little bit of that feel of Ring of Honor. I mean, it's a hybrid company. Like, they thought that's why Fusion was already been built on anyway. And then what you do is, with MLW, if they're able to get themselves a little more production, they're stepping up the production anyway. You just gotta, whatever you gotta do with 2300 Arena or Gillies, wherever else you work at, let's spruce up the rest of the outside of the ring. When it comes to, you don't want to have those bare floors like you do in 2300 Arena with the concrete. Let's pad the floors outside the ring. And let's, make sure the barricades got some covers on it. Let's do some of that. Because at least do it a little bit what Ring of Honor did, where they did try to go ahead and spruce up the outside of the ring and make it look better. Because you don't want to have it look, you're almost there. Like, you already have the quality when it comes to how you have a lot of things being shot and what they're doing backstage. It looks better. Like, there's a whole lot of things they got right over there of a modern company. And NWA could also be in the same vein. But, with NWA, it's still working kind of slow and steady. They are going back to GPB Studios, so they're going back to Atlanta doing the TV studio stuff for Power, so I'm looking forward to that. Once they come back with a live audience, I'm all in watching again. I will find my way to watch. I haven't been watching the stuff from the I haven't watched any of the St. Louis tapings that they did after Empower and NWA 73. I haven't watched it. But I will catch up, and I also know there's a lot of stuff going on when it comes to the breakup of Nick Aldis breaking away from Strictly Business, and now it looks like Thomas Latimer is now pissed off at Nick Aldis, so those guys are going to be having war words, and Trevor Murdoch has worked on his own thing coming up now, so there's that going on. There's a lot going on now with wrestling. So it's all something to look forward to the next year. All the seedlings. So here we are. Now, I saw that NXT is going to have War Games. I don't know if I'm going to do a post show for that in a couple weeks. It's on December 5th. I'll think about it. I don't know. Maybe I will, just depending on. If there's other stuff that's going on, or I need to do like a start the year in wrestling history, the year in wrestling for 2021, I want to start it there. I could do that. So I'll think about it, because I might have other things to talk about besides War Games. Now, the next post show I'll be doing will be Ring of Honor's Final Battle, which even the Briscoe brothers are saying it might be the end of an era, and I believe it is, but that's what I'm going to consume. That's what I'm going to assume it is. Ring of Honor, I think the last show they're going to have, we're going to get to see him off, and that's coming up December 11th, so I'll have that as a post show to do for all of you on the next post show for the Wrestling is Real podcast. But I'll be back Wednesday going into Thursday. We'll talk about the fallout from all this. Thanks for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the long extended edition of the program, which I went farther than I even thought I was going to be, but hey, a lot to say. Anyway, come back this week for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.